JavaScript is a popular programming language that is used to add interactivity to web pages. It is a client side language that is executed by the browser, making it a great choice for building dynamic web applications. Let us dive into our examples. Example 75. JavaScript optional chaining. Optional chaining allows us to safely access properties in a concise way. We can use the question mark syntax to access a property. Example 76. JavaScript nullish coalescing. Nullish coalescing allows us to provide default values in a concise way. We can use the double question mark syntax to provide a default value. Example 77. JavaScript Begin allows us to represent large integers in a concise way. We can use the n suffix to create a begin. Example 78. JavaScript promise.all. Promise.all allows us to handle multiple promises in a concise way. We can use the promise.all method to handle multiple promises. Example 79. JavaScript promise.raise. Promise.raise allows us to handle multiple promises in a concise way. We can use the promise.raise method to handle multiple promises. Example 80. JavaScript async iterators. Async iterators allow us to handle asynchronous data in a concise way. We can use the async function star syntax to define an async iterator. Example 81. JavaScript object dot from entries. Object dot from entries allows us to create an object from an array in a concise way. We can use the object dot from entries method to create an object. Example 82. JavaScript string.prototype.matchAll. String.prototype.matchAll allows us to find all matches in a string in a concise way. We can use the matchAll method to find all matches. Example 83. JavaScript array.prototype.flat. Array.prototype.flat allows us to flatten an array in a concise way. We can use the flat method to flatten an array. Example 84. JavaScript array prototype flat map. Array.prototype.flatMap allows us to map and flatten an array in a concise way. We can use the flat map method to map and flatten an array. Example 85. JavaScript set.prototype.union. Set.prototype.union allows us to union two sets in a concise way. We can use the union method to union two sets. Example 86. JavaScript map.prototype.merge. Map.prototype.merge allows us to merge two maps in a concise way. we can use the merge method to merge two maps. Example 87. JavaScript weakref allows us to create a weak reference in a concise way. We can use the weakref constructor to create a weak reference. Example 88. JavaScript finalization registry. Finalization registry allows us to handle object finalization in a concise way. We can use the finalization registry constructor to handle object finalization. Example 89. JavaScript atomics. Atomics allows us to perform atomic operations in a concise way. We can use the atomics object to perform atomic operations. Example 90. JavaScript shared array buffer. Shared array buffer allows us to share memory in a concise way. We can use the shared array buffer constructor to share memory. Example 91. JavaScript WebAssembly. WebAssembly allows us to run WASM code in a concise way. We can use the WebAssembly object to run WSAM code. Example 92. JavaScript SIMD. SIMD allows us to perform parallel operations in a concise way. We can use the SIMD object to perform parallel operations. Example 93. JavaScript Performance API. Performance API allows us to measure performance in a concise way. We can use the performance object to measure performance. Example 94. JavaScript Intel.datetime format. Intel.datetime format allows us to format dates in a concise way. We can use the Intel.datetime format constructor to format dates. Example 95. JavaScript Intel.number format. Intel.number format allows us to format numbers in a concise way. We can use the Intel.number format constructor to format numbers. Example 96. JavaScript Intel.relative-time format. Intel.relative-time format allows us to format relative times in a concise way. We can use the Intel.relative-time format constructor to format relative times. Example 97. JavaScript Intel.list format. Intel.list format allows us to format list in a concise way. We can use the Intel.list format constructor to format list. Example 98. JavaScript Intel.displayNames. Intel.displayNames allows us to format display names in a concise way. we can use the Intel.DisplayNames constructor to format display names. That's it for today's video. We have explored 25 JavaScript examples that can be used to enhance your ASP.NET Core MVC projects. Try using these examples in your own projects and see the difference they make. Thank you.